All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. I know it's been a crazy one if you follow the news, but otherwise, I hope you've been enjoying the sun and getting your cars out and having a good time. So, like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. We'll give priority answering to anyone who has a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description to get that as well. And so we have a bunch of people already joined in here. So welcome here to Brian, Kraken, Lancelot, Kevin, Vishal, Anthony, and let me see, Stillbuster, yeah, Danny, Nicholas, and Linda and Adam. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And I see Brian says the cars I saw this week was a Corvette and two Maseratis. Very nice. My favorite spot of the week was actually a Aston Martin DBS Volante, or DBS Volante there. Such a super beautiful car, and it was the newest version, and I saw it also. We were at the beach this past week, so seeing it cruising by the beach there is perfection. So that was the one that got me the most excited here this week. And curious what else everyone else saw here. So yeah, Kraken says, what a weekend. That could, hopefully it was a good one for you. But yes, what a weekend indeed. And Lancelot says, good evening. My spots were a white W204 AMG C63, nice. A white OG Lexus LS400 and a black Raptor R. Very nice. And Michelle says, my spots were an early 2000s Chrysler Pacifica, red Chrysler Crossfire, cool. Fisker Karma, New Z in orange. Oh, that must have been the Heritage Edition. That's cool. And a previous gen Rogue in a yellowish gold color. Nice, that's funny. Actually, another oddball that I saw out of the beach here this week was a Range Rover Evoque convertible that actually had the top down. That's another unicorn. And Anthony says, hey, everyone, I had some great spots this weekend alone. Porsche Dakar, nice. Lamborghini Ruelto, first gen yellow Honda Civic, Ram TRX, and a cool Mercury Marauder. Very nice. That's awesome. So I'm going to silence my watch here. Yeah, man, you see some pretty sweet stuff. It's I have yet to see a Ruelto or a Dakar on the streets. That's awesome. Let me see. Stillbuster says, hey guys, car spots of the week are a Mitsubishi Starion, Volkswagen Eurovan, and a Toyota Starlet. Unrelated question. What would you choose for your last meal on Earth? No limit on courses. No limit on courses. Last meal on Earth? I guess I would just say an unlimited number of courses, so I didn't have to have the last meal end. Maybe. I don't know. I'm curious what other people's responses are. For me, oh man, I don't even know. It'd probably involve like a bunch of Italian food. That's usually some of my favorites. But so many foods I love. And I see Lancelot says Lipton onion soup burgers. Nice. I've never had that. Sounds like it has potential though. I love those Lipton soups. And let me see. Danny says, hello, I drove solo for the first time yesterday. Very enjoyable. That's awesome. Well, congrats. He says, rare spots are an 85 Ford F-150 yellow and white, 86 Lincoln Town Car, 9th gen Civic Hybrid, Gen 1 facelift Ranger, a single cab shorty. The Ranger was a black and brown combo. Interesting. That's quite the combo. And cool spots. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any like 80s or 90s kind of stuff that I saw this week. Nothing jumps out at me that was really outstanding. There was also a few little car shows that I happened upon with a few classics and stuff, but nothing super crazy or out of the ordinary. And let me see. Linda says, happy summer. Yeah, I hope everyone's having a great summer here so far. Appreciate all the love there and stopping by, Adam, Matthew, and David. And TFI says, hey, Matt, my dad finally bought a new car, a 23 Lincoln Aviator Reserve, after his 09 BMW X5 diesel was mechanically written off. Wow. Well, I'm kind of surprised to see the diesel BMW go out. That's kind of surprising. Usually those things run forever. Maybe he had a ton of miles on it, but hopefully he enjoys the Aviator. They're great. I actually have an Aviator review for the 25 here coming, not this coming week, but the following week. And Aviator is really nice. I hope he enjoys it. And yeah, great choice, I think. And Luke says, honestly, Ford should bring back Fusion, Taurus, and make them sportbacks for cargo practicality and still good to drive. Sportbacks are underrated. I agree. And I think there is a Taurus, or I can't remember what they call it in China, but China still has a Ford sedan. And I think that one's a liftback now. I'm not totally sure, but I thought it was. But yeah, I totally agree. It makes total sense. Great idea. Like I said in this past week's review of the A5 and the S5, and just I think it's really the best way to fend off the desertion of people from sedans to SUVs. I think that's a perfect way to do it. And I mean, I said this, this point 7 years ago when the Kia Stinger came out. I'm like, why doesn't everybody do this? And finally, everyone else is, it seems, little by little. And let me see. Matthew says, spotted a modified 2000 Supra. Very nice. That's yeah, I always love seeing Mark 5 Super or Mark 4 Supras. Always super exciting. Actually, 2000 though, I thought wasn't 98 the last year. At least here in the States, I think it is. Maybe yeah, I don't know. Anyway, cool Supra spot nonetheless. And Luke said, I'm so happy I got my ceilings reinstalated last November. This time last June, my AC ran for 16 hours per day. Now it runs about 10 hours. Nice. Yeah. I feel like installation is not given enough credit. Like the amount of energy efficiency that could be had just by people improving, insulation and sealing up leaky windows and doors and stuff like that. It really does go a long way. And I'm sure your nice lower electric bill, hopefully, is a nice extra perk of that as well. Rafi says, woohoo, hi, Matt. I saw a Ferrari 296 and Nissan Z. I've probably seen the same amount of both. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, I'm just glad that, the Zs are starting to slowly pop up little by little because, for a while there, it's like no one was seeing any of them. And then this year, finally, they're starting to show up a little bit as some of those Nissan dealers are finally getting desperate enough to loosen their chokehold on that car. And Kraken says, hey, Matt, insane weekend. Me and the N Club PA were up at Watkins Glen thanks to Hyundai. New England and New York were there as well. So many compliments by strangers with Kraken. That's awesome. Glad you had a fun time, he said. And someone saying Kraken was their dream build. Also, we got to take our cars on the track for 3 parade laps. Bucket list item check. That's awesome. And I also said, other than my knock sensor going off strangely on the way up and my hot side charge pipe blowing off on the way home today in Williamsport, 2.5 hours from home, it was a great time with my peeps. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad they minor little hiccups there didn't ruin it or anything. And that sounds awesome. I'm so happy you had a great weekend there. And yeah, it's always fun doing car stuff with car friends. And let me see. Raphael said, I'm here hanging a couple of ceiling fans while I watch. Nice. Well, kudos to you for being handy and doing that. I think me and my father-in-law, like mostly him, put up one ceiling fan before. And even that, I was like, it's I'm just not a handy person. So those types of things, especially something that's hanging above my head, definitely something that I usually like getting some help with because I am not good enough at that. But kudos to you for being able to do that stuff. That's awesome. And TFI said the X5 had 75,000 miles, clogged DPF, and failed air suspension, among other things. Okay, so it wasn't just the engine. Gotcha. And market value is about $7 to $8 grand, but yeah, the motor itself is bulletproof once you delete emissions equipment. Nice. That's I'm honestly surprised that 75,000 miles that all that other stuff went. That's the thing with these BMWs. And honestly, a lot of the German vehicles and European stuff in general are just overly complicated sometimes that, you have good vehicles with some really good parts that still just end up, getting scrapped because it's just too expensive to fix that stuff. Yeah, so we'll see if any other people are stopping by, but I'm happy with it's the first time in a long time we've actually reached the end of the comments here. So yeah, I was interesting week for me. I went down to Sea Isle City, New Jersey, for a little beach vacation. Our extended family has a Verbo down there, and yeah, we had a nice week at the beach. Still did some work. Still was doing stuff. You saw it was posting up videos and stuff still that I was working on a little bit, but had some good times at the beach there. And yeah, drove down in an Acura ADX. Stay tuned for that review. And drove back in the new Volkswagen Tiguan. So stay tuned for that review as well. But yeah, thankfully it was an uneventful trip. Everything was really good on the drive up and back. And yeah, we had last weekend, I got creative because to go from Pittsburgh to New Jersey, I had to go through Philly. And last weekend was all the protest stuff. So I got creative with my route and saw some cool new roads and stuff that I've never driven on before, trying to bypass going through downtown Philly. But it was a really great trip. We had a really nice time, and again, saw some cool cars. And it's always fun being in a beach town. It's just a very fun vibe. Highly recommend if anyone hasn't ever done that before. And Raphael says, at this point, I've done half the electrical and almost all the plumbing in this house. That's awesome. Well, yeah, kudos to you. That's so so respectable. And Chad says, with markets in constant flux, what are your recommendations for used vehicles, 10,000 to 15,000? My top recommendations, and this is probably, I think maybe a slightly unpopular opinion, but usually someone that's buying in that kind of a price segment, especially, you're probably looking for the lowest miles possible, the newest vehicle you can possibly get. You want to have as many creature comforts as you can possibly get for your price range, and that can work out in some cases. You have to really do a lot of research as far as not only the car's reputation, but also, the one that you are actually buying as far as Carfax, has it been maintained well and all that stuff. For example, a Hyundai could be a flip of the coin. If you get one that's been really well maintained, you might be totally good to pick up, a newer Hyundai Sonata or something that's, a really solid buy. You get a lot of car for your money, you get something newer and all this. But you have to make sure that, again, like, it hasn't been neglected, that everything's been done properly and all that. But usually what I actually tell people is, if you are searching in a, lower price bracket, I mean, again, it comes down to exactly what you need out of the vehicle, obviously, as far as segment. And, you want an SUV, do you want a sedan, you're talking sports cars. There's obviously different cars to specifically recommend. But I like to tell people to try, especially if it's something where you don't want it breaking the bank after the fact. If you want to just spend your 10 to 15,000 and hopefully not spend anything else, for the most part, again, any car in that price range, you're going to have age items going and you're going to have to do stuff eventually. But I really just suggest going with something typically Japanese. And even if you're having to go older, like, I'd rather have a 5-year older Honda Accord or Toyota Camry than a 5-year newer Sonata, just because of, again, when you look at the ones that really do go the distance, again, with the right maintenance, a Hyundai or a Kia can as well. And I love those brands. But whenever we're shopping stuff over the 6-figure mark, where you don't have the awesome perk of that long, powertrain warranty anymore, and there's other things, like, if it were me shopping in that price range, that's the kind of stuff I'd be going for, as a Honda or a Toyota. And like I've said, some of my favorite stuff when we're talking enthusiast stuff, like, in that price range, I'd go for a really nice Scion TC, or the last generation of the Honda Civic Si before it went turbo. Something like that. You can get a pretty nice one for even like 10 grand. I've also said how Pontiac Solstices are a really good value. That's obviously not Japanese, but another simple vehicle. It's a ton of fun. It's a really good, sports car value. Miatas are always fantastic. And you can get those nice and cheap now. I mean, but that's really what I tell people is, again, there are some exceptions. Like, I think, for example, a Ford Fusion is a vehicle that I'd be pretty confident about having that go the distance, again, as long as it was maintained well. But typically, especially when you are looking at the Honda and Toyota used market, those buyers and those owners often do have more of a focus on reliability because they bought a Honda or a Toyota. And as a result, they probably are a little more meticulous about their maintenance and not trashing a car. And so that's so those things kind of all go hand in hand, that you have the right buyers that are selling the vehicles to you, or the right owners selling the vehicles to you, and you have vehicles that typically are looked to for those qualities. Obviously, you can still get a trashed Accord that they never did the oil changes on, at a reasonable interval, and you end up having, a motor going in a Accord at 100,000 miles, but that takes a little bit of more of an effort, and seems to be a little bit more rare. Again, from my impressions of things, I think so. That's why typically, again, if it were my money, I'd stick with something Japanese, preferably Honda or Toyota. I would avoid Subaru for sure, because those motors over 100,000 miles typically start to get leaky and all that. So that's really what I would go for. And then, as far as what segments, again, if you're talking sports cars, obviously nothing really from Honda or Toyota there, because I think even Scion FRSs are still, if you're buying one for 15 grand, it's probably overpriced. There's like this weird delta with Scion FRSs I saw a few months ago, where you have really beat up crappy ones that are pretty cheap and are in that price range. But then you have like all the decent, nice ones seem to be like really expensive, like so much so that you can probably just spend a few grand more for a used 2022 GR86 or the new gen version and get a much better car for basically hardly anything more. And it seems like there's this weird like leap that happens. So, but I mean, if you can, Scion FRS, BRZ, the first generation, also another great buy, I'd say in that segment as well, if you're looking for that kind of a price range. A great question. And I know that's something that a lot of people are really, going to be more and more interested in, again, as prices rise and people, have less and less money as things continue to progress in America. So that's why I really want to do more reviews of that kind of price range stuff. And I'm going to thankfully have some gaps in the schedule here in July and August, where I'm going to really try to do a lot more of the used stuff. Because I think it's very, very important. And Lance, well, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate it, and happy to see some familiar faces there able to get some memberships as well. And we all appreciate your generosity, Lance. Well, thank you so much. And Kraken says we also saw the IMSA race and the Saline 6 hours at the Glen. Nice. What? So you just had everything that weekend. It's crazy. There were so many things packed into one weekend. That's awesome. And Luke said, I hope the beach was fun. Ocean City, New Jersey is usually my go-to for the Jersey Shore. I was going to ask how the Mach-E was for the Jersey Shore drive. Yeah. It just worked out that I was able to take those press cars, and still can't beat the convenience of gas. I mean, we went to Seattle City 3 years ago in the Mach-E, and it was issue free even back then. Now there's more chargers, so I think it would be completely fine. But it's just still it takes longer to charge. And so that's why we just figured we'll just take the gas stuff there. But I would have not hesitated. And actually, I didn't know if I was even going to have a press car until like a few days before. So I was like preparing for like, all right, we'll take the Mach-E again. It'll be a great another test of the charging infrastructure and all that. But then ended up, I was able to take the easy way out there. So, Rafi said, also, we ended up leasing a RAV4 XLE Premium Hybrid. Well, congrats. Toyota gave us $3,000 of equity from our lease. Honda only wanted to give us $500. My mom loves it. No stress about spare tires. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad, she's able to end up with something that she enjoys there. And nothing wrong with RAV4s, right? That's why it's the best-selling vehicle outside of the F-150. And great you went for the hybrid as well. And it's good that Toyota gave you a better deal, because like Toyota usually isn't in the habit of giving out good deals. They usually have some of the worst incentives, because they don't need them, honestly. But I mean, worst incentives, worst interest rates typically. It's like, hey, get a special like 5.9% or something. It's like, why? This is not something you should even be advertising. It's not good. But I'm glad that they're able to work out a good deal for you. That's awesome. And hope that she continues to enjoy it for a long time. That's another car. Those things will go forever, especially if they're maintained well. So that's great. And Luke says, I want to buy an e-bike and go on the Jersey Shore for a week, park the car, and just ride the e-bike everywhere. I feel like that would be fun given how flat it is down there. Yeah, there are so many people on bikes, and a decent amount on e-bikes as well. It'd be a really nice place to just ride around on the bike. We did a lot of walking and just, enjoying the shore and stuff. It'll also, like, this week coming up, those of you here on the East Coast, I mean, we're gonna have this heat wave, but last week it was actually kind of cool for the first few days, and then got into like the nice, like, mid to high 70s into the very early low kind of 80s towards the end of the week there. So really pleasant weather, not the best weather for swimming or anything, but like it was a really nice time for sure. Highly recommend, Jersey Shore, despite all the all the misnomers I'm sure that are out there thanks to the MTV show or whatever. TFI said it was at the beach yesterday. If you ever come to Vancouver, you got to check it out. I'd love to. That sounds really cool. I just want to go to Vancouver in general. I've heard so many wonderful things, and I've never been. So yesterday it actually snowed in BC, close to Montana, on the first day of summer. That's crazy. I don't know if that's normal or not around there, but that sounds crazy to me. And Gladys said, what is it that Brembo does with brakes that car manufacturers can't? I'm wondering why brands try to upsell them beyond the name recognition. I think the thing with Brembo is they have made the transition from just supplier to, having this equity in the name that is something that's marketable. Cars in general are a giant conglomeration of parts from suppliers, and there's very few things that the manufacturer actually makes themselves. There are some things, but everything is made by someone else, and whether that is some captive subdivision or it's some other thing like Brembo. So what I'm trying to say is, like, Brembo, and this goes for like Recaro, even, like, there's companies like that where like they make like branded seats or branded brakes, but I think they also do a lot of just like supplier stuff as well. And so with Brembo, it's like, okay, well, we need good brakes, and we can brag about how it has Brembo brakes, and that's an upgrade, and every enthusiast goes ding 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 ding. That's cool, that's great, that's a even without even going into the specifics of how much bigger it is or whatever, just saying it's a Brembo brake is in itself an upgrade, even if it were the same size, just because of, again, how that's hardwired in our brains. And so I think, car manufacturers can, and they often do. You look at a lot of stuff where either Brembo can't do what the car company needs them to do. Like you look at the supercars, for example, or if you look at, some others that have just done it on their own. There are plenty of examples of, companies that have bigger brakes. Volkswagen Golf R, for example, has really big, meaty brakes, but they're branded with the R logo. There's all kinds of instances of that. So, it's probably just coming down to the supplier deal. Is there enough volume? Is there something that Brembo has off the shelf where they can kind of just sell the manufacturer something that fits what they're looking for, versus a custom-made solution or something? There's a whole bunch of logistical and economical things behind the scenes that go into why it ends up being a Brembo or isn't a Brembo. I'm sure Brembo probably would love to have every single car in the world have Brembo brakes, so it just comes down to, where to fit in and where to, get those placements. But car companies can absolutely make their own brakes or find a supplier that can knock off Brembo or do something else. And this is why, like, for example, ZF is a huge supplier of transmissions. Some car companies do also make their own transmissions, but it's like, well, ZF makes the best 8-speed automatic. Why would we bother doing our own? Some companies have tried, like Kia and Hyundai, for example, where they very much do everything in-house. For the most part, they want to have their own transmission. They even have their own steel. They make their own steel. They make their own transmissions. They do their own engines. Everything is, very much in-house, and that's been kind of one of the brilliant things about them, is they can control a lot more of the vehicle components than many others who are dependent on suppliers. But I think with Brembo, it's just, they are in this real sweet spot of having that name cachet, and also just, again, being very, very popular, so I think that's why car companies just choose not to bother, many times. But that's a great question. Thanks for asking, Gladys. And if anyone else also has any better insight on that, I'd love to hear more too. But I think that's kind of what I've gathered over the years. And Daniel says, I saw an LS430 and LS460, 2 second-gen Mirais, light blue Civic Type R, newest gen. Nice. All great spots there. Thanks for sharing. And let me see here. Ravi says Ford Fusions are still running strong on the road. My coworker has a hybrid and has had no issues at all. I think he has 100,000 miles. The only flaw is how small the trunk is in that. Nice. Yeah. I mean, and yeah, especially, if we're talking about like the Ford and their hybrids in particular, I mean, they've been proven. Look at New York City taxi cabs. I mean, so many of them were Ford Escapes forever and have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles. I think some of them are even approaching 1 million miles. And they're still going, and so I think Ford's hybrid system is fantastic, and it's been proven over the test of time to be very, very good, which is a shame because Ford is, I mean, aside from the Maverick, they're not really utilizing that hybrid powertrain. It's in the Escape, but like no one buys Escapes anymore, and Ford doesn't even seem interested in it anymore. So it's kind of a shame because it's actually a really solid powertrain, a little rough around the edges of, if you've watched my hybrid Ford reviews, there's a few rough edges, but overall it's a solid system. And yeah, so I would totally recommend, especially the hybrids. Yeah, those things will definitely go the distance. And TFI says, speaking of Japanese and Pontiac, the Vibe is a fantastic daily without the Toyota tax. That's true. First gen Vibe GT had the high revving 2ZZ GE motor. Nice. Yeah. All Vibes are fantastic. It's kind of funny to say, but no, yeah, the Vibe is yeah. And what was the other one too? There's a couple others where, anything that Toyota, did. There's one other one I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's lots of examples. I mean, even like Saturn Vue had a Honda motor in it. That's one that, would be a really good pick, so there's some of those types of things. And Saturn Vues, I think, have almost gone completely extinct. I haven't seen a Vue in probably years at this point, but that thing, yeah, Honda motor shouldn't have any issues. It should be good for a long, long time. There's a lot of stuff like that. A few of the Saturns actually had Honda motors, I think. So those, probably would go the distance even longer than a regular, Chevy, which some of those also with good maintenance can do pretty well. And Raphael says, 2 fans is enough for today. Not a sighting, but I went with my friend to buy a new Z. She loves them. That's awesome. Glad she was able to get one, hopefully, and get it for a good price there. And congrats on installing the 2 fans. Yeah, job well done. And let me see. I see TFI is also saying that about the first gen Fusion. My local the police department still has Ford Fusions on the road for community patrol. Nice. Yeah, it's I'm kind of surprised. I've never really seen Fusion police cars. I think maybe some in New York City at one point, but that's cool. They're still using them. And viewer says, hi Matt, what do you think about the daily FL5 Type R? About dailying an FL5 Type R. I'm in the Chicago area, or would you consider looking at the BMW M240i? I mean, those are completely different cars. If you're talking with M240i about the 2-door, I'm assuming, and not the 4-door one. FL5 is great. Chicago area, I mean, I don't know how much, if you're dailying it, I don't know, the roads you are on, if they are hammered with snow a lot. If I was in Illinois, in the middle of winter, I think I'd probably want all-wheel drive myself. And the thing about FL5 is, those front tires are really wide, 265 wide. And I mean, even in the rain, I mean, that thing was all over the road if you went full throttle in the rain. I mean, it's fun, but, if you're I'm sure if you took it easy, it would do okay. But it's just, the common knowledge is that, super wide tires aren't great for putting down power in the snow. So, and maybe you can find a wheel or something aftermarket to maybe go a little skinnier for the tires for a winter setup. And, snow tires can get you through a lot of stuff if you really want to do it. If you have been, people can see it coming from a mile away, I would recommend, going for something all-wheel drive, like Gio Corolla. Take a shot, everyone who's playing along at home. But no, FL5 is, again, I'm sure with snow tires, you'd probably be okay. M240i, I'm guessing you're talking about the X-Drive version possibly, because then that solves your dilemma with snow traction. And M240i, I did an M235i for the last generation. Never done an M240i, the new gen version, unfortunately. I wanted to, just never had an opportunity. I'm hoping to someday. But I don't have a lot of experience with those. And M235i was really fun, sounded great. I think those are actually a really good, value these days. But yeah, I don't know enough about pricing as far as, which one is the better value. Now, if you're not worried about the whole weather aspect, I think personally I'd rather have FL5, just because the manual and being a Honda manual, and just that car is so tight, so well done, so practical, so nice inside. It's comfortable. It can be a little firm at times. I mean, when around Pittsburgh here, it was fine. Whenever I was out in Sonoma, it was a little rough with some of the roads being a little bumpy. But I think Illinois is probably not the best with roads either. So, maybe, I don't know again what pricing is like, but maybe you go up to Integra Type S, give you the Type R stuff, but maybe a little bit of softer ride, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, I think either one's probably going to be a lot of fun though, either way, if those are the two you've narrowed it down to. And best of luck in your decision making too. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, reliability question. The TRD has 6,700 RPM redline. I rev to 5,000 maybe twice a month because it sounds so good. How bad for longevity? It's fun. That's actually really good for longevity to ring a motor out. And as long as the things that I'd say is just, you don't want to be sitting at redline or really lingering there for a long period of time. But I mean, there's the joke about the Italian tune-up, which is just going full throttle every so often just to kind of clean the valves and get everything kind of, blown out. So I think it's actually very good to rev out your car. And this is an anecdotal kind of story, but my dad actually was very adamant about not redlining his 97 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport. And I mean, this is just, again, Subarus always kind of have those seals start to go bad after a while, but at like 105,000 miles or something, it started getting a little leaky with the oil, and there's seals that were starting to go and stuff, even though he, like, almost religiously never took it over 4,000 RPM if he could avoid it. I can probably count on maybe one hand the amount of times in the 10 years that he owned that car that he took it, that I saw him at least take it to redline or even close over 4,000 RPM. And I remember as a little kid being like, oh man, he's really in a hurry today because we went over 4,000 RPM. But it's actually, I think, kind of bad for a car if you don't, rev it out. It sounds like if you're going to 5,000, you're getting most of the way to 6,700, but absolutely, I think it's very good to floor your car, get that stuff moving. So I think it's actually worse for your car if you don't. So yeah, if it sounds good, you enjoy it, by all means, rev it out. And I think really the only longevity stuff is either if you're not keeping up on oil changes, or if you are really at high temps for long periods of time, really pushing the car, like track driving, stuff like that. But around town and stuff, open it up, enjoy it, have fun with it. Especially, you're talking about a Toyota V6, you've got no worries. I mean, that thing, you got another 300,000 plus miles in that thing if you just do your oil changes on time. So I don't think you should worry at all, even if you plan to keep that car the rest of your life. I think you can rev it as much as you want and have a blast with it. I hope that helps you a little bit. And thanks so much for the super chat. And Notorious CRG, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Toyota Matrix, how's the Fiat treating you so far? The Fiat's treating me great. Yeah, it's still, I think it's like 675 miles on it now. It's been sitting for a month and a half at this point. I am going to actually be driving it around a little bit this week, just because I already put a lot of miles on this Tiguan that I brought home from the beach. And I try not to do a ton of miles in the press cars, some of them still would like it to be between like 300 and 500 miles, and I've put almost 500 on it already. I could drive it more, but I've driven it enough at this point. I don't need to, and the Fiat needs a little bit of exercise as well. So Tiguan's going to be parked for the next few days, and the Fiat's going to be my little daily driver. So I'm excited for that. It's so bizarre, my strange life, that I get so giddy about about driving my own personal vehicle because I never really have much of a chance to do that. But yeah, Fiat's still doing great so far, and still just puts a smile on my face, even just seeing it there in the garage. And thanks so much again for the super chat. And Wheatman, thanks so much for being a member now for 39 months. Really appreciate that. He says, good evening, Matt. What is your favorite Grand Touring EV sedan for a comfortable ride with cooled seats? I'd say my favorite EV sedan that I have personally experienced is the Ioniq 6. It's just so well packaged, and yet it's so small. And it really does the same thing that the Model 3 does, where it's so much space in a small little car. It's so easy to park, so easy to maneuver, really low and sporty too, so you still get that kind of fun component. But I love Ioniq 6, and I think that's going to be my top pick. And also Hyundai does pretty good cooled seats, unlike some other companies that do not do very good cooled seats. Even this Tiguan I have currently, like, the cooled seats do almost nothing, which is really disappointing whenever it's 90 degrees outside. So, I mean, as far as other EV touring sedans, I've heard a lot of good things about like Lucid Air being phenomenal. I've never driven one. I will say that, we had a Tesla Model S back in 2019. I did a review of it, and it was just a car that I rented off Turo for a weekend wedding thing in North Carolina. And I mean, Model S is a great Grand Tourer. It was comfy. It's solid feeling. It was, quiet. So if you don't have a problem with Tesla, Model S, especially these days, is dirt cheap. And they're also pretty reliable, it seems. They've seemed to, stand the test of time really well. Battery packs seem to be lasting a good long time. So I think Model S is still, one of the best things that Tesla makes. And again, I personally these days, though, I wouldn't buy one. But especially even if you don't personally have anything against Tesla, I just don't recommend it from a resale standpoint, unless you're going to run it into the ground and you don't care what it's worth. I don't know. I'm guessing that maybe with Elon taking a step back, values will start to recover a little bit, but there's no guarantee that Elon's not going to put his foot in his mouth again tomorrow and, send the company spiraling again. So that's just the biggest unknown there. If you're not worried about the resale components, then, and you're not offended by Tesla's shenanigans and Elon's shenanigans, then I think Model S is very good, objective car reviewer standpoint. But I'd say Ioniq 6 is definitely the way I'd go, or Lucid Air. And I mean, you can get insane lease deals on Lucid Air right now, especially if you're coming out of a Tesla or another EV. Their Conquest deals are really good. So I'd probably say Lucid. And also, if we're talking actual touring in, long distances, Lucid Air has the best range of any of them. So in that regard as well, you can't get better than the Lucid, I think. And I've heard really good things about how they drive too. So I'm willing to go out on a limb and recommend it, even though I've never driven it. Seems like they're very, very well done. So yeah, I'm hoping that we get more EV sedans in the future, though. I think, it'd be great to see GM do some. It'd be great to see, Ford do one someday, and others. But in the meantime, I think, those are the best ones. And I also think Charger EV is super comfortable, and there's the sedan version here coming, I guess now. And so that's, that was also really comfy, not great range, but super, super comfy. It'd be a really nice Grand Tourer as well. And Notorious CRG, thank you for another super chat. He says the Toy Matrix is the Toyota version of the Vibe. Yeah, that's correct. And actually, I had someone in New York that offered me a Matrix, and it was the manual, and like it was really nicely done. And I've just never had a chance to review it. I'm hoping to someday review a Matrix, because I think that would actually be really fun and really cool to show off, and give them a little bit of limelight, because there's, I'm sure, hardly any reviews out there of Matrixes or Vibes in particular. So yeah, but yeah, good cars. And I still see matrices every once in a while out on the road, which also shows, their longevity and just how well they were built. And let me see here. Where were we on the member questions here? So I see Kraken says his best weekend of his ever in his life. That's awesome. And TFI says, I feel like the mid-2000s GM, Ford, Hyundai, Kia had semi-reliable sedans but horrible interiors. Yeah, I mean, I think that's largely true. I know I had, even back in high school and like middle school and stuff, there was a teacher who had like an '06 Hyundai Elantra, and he swore by that thing. He put, I mean, even back then, I don't know, was over 200,000 miles on it or something, and it was just going great and just loved the thing to death. So I think there were certainly some that, were better than people gave them credit for. And same thing with the Ford and the GM stuff. There were some really good ones. There are obviously, again, some misses as well, but I agree. I think there's some pretty good stuff once you got to that point in time. And horrible interiors, though, for sure, all that stuff. Not great. And that's the thing, is even if the mechanicals were decent, a lot of the other stuff just kind of fell apart on the vehicles and just had issues, and that kind of killed some of that as well. And Lance Moss says it snowed in Montana in August before. Crazy. All right, well, I guess yeah, I guess you've seen it all then. And I don't know if I could handle that. I'd be so disappointed seeing snow in August. Anyway, Chad says, I like all of your reviews, but love the older, more attainable cars you do. I know logistics are tough, but keep them coming. Absolutely. And I'm glad you enjoy them. And they do really well for me most of the time. They are really solid, slow growers that continue to get views for a long time. So that's why, another reason why I really want to focus on doing more of those, because the new stuff's always a gamble, but the used stuff almost always might not take off in the first even few months, but some of the stuff, like strangely, like recent example, I did like a 2017 Porsche Macan Turbo. I think it was about a year and a half ago at this point. Kind of bombed at first, honestly, went nowhere for about 6 months, and then slowly, surely started to like get more and more views. And I think now it's over like 40,000 views, which for a car review that's only like a year and a half old is pretty decent for me. And so there's a lot of those kinds of things that do really well. So I do definitely want to do more of the used stuff. It's just, it's always a struggle logistically, like you said. So that's kind of, but and I mean, again, I am willing to still just like completely say no to all press cars, say no to all trips if things get really bad with tariffs and stuff still, and if that doesn't get resolved, then I absolutely will just go to used stuff exclusively. And that'll be the kick that I need to go back to my roots if things really get to that point. And Danny says, my last 3 days of school are this week. Well, congrats. He says, Wednesday is the last day. High school graduation is outside in the heat on Wednesday as of now. Love driving the Bolt and vibing to the radio solo. That's awesome. He says, our Bolt has such a loud horn for its size. I scared someone because they cut me off and I hit it. Nice. Well, it's good to have a nice, strong horn, that's for sure. And hope you enjoy graduation, even if it's a bit of a scorcher. And congrats on graduating high school. That's an awesome achievement too. And Chad says, if every car came with Brembo, then people would want something different on performance trims. That's absolutely right. Totally agree. Yeah, that I'd be looking for the next thing to one up with a new brand. But Luke says, my brother's 2020 Hyundai Santa Fe had a rough start, then went into limp mode. Dealer said it was bad gas. I think that's a bit of BS, but it runs fine since he got it back over a week ago. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to know how many miles were on it. But yeah, because the bad gas is always an easy excuse for dealers to try and avoid warranty claims. But yeah, I mean, but bad gas does actually happen sometimes too. So that's, something that's can't be completely ruled out. But yeah, that is always the go-to. Like, oh, you probably have bad gas, and it's like, or maybe the car is actually screwing up. But I'm glad he's doing better for him now. Hopefully, he continues to treat him well. And I see Notorious CRG is very much into the Matrix there. And your boy Bullworm says, what's the max you pay for a C7 Z06 under 30,000 miles? I haven't looked at used prices in the past few months, so I can't I'd have to actually pull up the listings and kind of see. And as far as beauty is also in the eye of the beholder, so it comes down to what that's worth to you, and what the value is there. So yeah, there's no way I could even spitball a number, because I was looking up regular C6s or C7s when I did my C7 review back in the spring, but I didn't really look into Z06s that closely. So I don't remember what a decent price would be, and that probably has changed since the spring as well because of, again, all the tariff BS. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but basically, try and find, just sift through them on, whatever your favorite, listing site is. I always go to Auto Trader typically, but find ones with clean Carfaxes, clean titles, no accidents, all that stuff. And then just look for the cheapest thing under 30,000 miles. Look at the Carfaxes on them, make sure that the maintenance has been done properly and on time, and there's no sketchy other stuff popping up on the Carfax. And if it looks all clean, probably go for whatever the cheapest one is, honestly. C7 Z06s should be pretty robust. I know the very first model year there were some teething issues, I think, so maybe avoid the first model year. But aside from that, all that stuff's also been documented by now, so I don't think there's going to be any unknowns, and everything will be handled by dealers if there is some kind of out of the ordinary issue, I think. But hopefully it helps you a little bit, though. And sorry, I can't give you an exact number there. And let me see. I see TFI says Toyota rebadged the Cavalier for the Japanese market, and rebadged the Vibe as the Toyota Volt. Corolla Cross should have been the Matrix. That would have been fun if they would have put that on there. And yeah, it's so funny, the whole story about like Toyota giving GM a sympathy buy with bringing the Cavalier to Japan, and like no one bought it because everyone knew the Japanese stuff was better. And that's kind of something that's been funny with how that's kind of resurfaced with Trump bringing up, like, why don't we have more American cars in Europe? And it's like, there's a lot of reasons why, and they're good reasons why. Same thing with Japan. A lot of it's just size, requirements, and roads being too small to handle American cars, but also, like, in a lot of cases, those buyers want something that is custom tailored for their markets. And a lot of great American stuff as well that I'm sure many Europeans enjoy too. But it's there's a good reason why you see countries often stick to their own domestic market, and we do it here in the States as well. Like F-150 being the number one selling thing, everyone having pickup trucks and many other American vehicles that are top sellers. We do it just the same as they do. And Luke says Chevy Prism was a rebadged Corolla. Yeah, the Chevy Prism, I think, is the one I was thinking of possibly. And there's a bunch of other stuff too in the 80s and 90s where it was all rebadged. The Nova, I see a bunch of stuff. So yeah, thanks for helping me out, everyone there. And Chaz says my first car was an '84 Nova with all Toyota parts. Nice. I'm sure that car is probably still running today as long as the body's not rusted out on it. That's awesome. And B. Mitchell said drink, yeah, because I mentioned JR Corolla. Also said thanks, Lance Swath, for the gift membership late due to putting the toys away after the Back to the 50s show this weekend. 11,000 cars, all 1964 or older. That's awesome. I've always heard about that show. I'd love to go some year. That's got to be incredible. 11,000 cars. That's nuts. Yeah, I've never gone to a giant show like that. Carlisle's one of the biggest ones, that and Vintage Grand Prix, but yeah, that'd be so fun. I'm sure it was a blast. And Jay says, hey, Matt, great to see you, and hopefully your family is in great health. Hope you're doing well too, Jay. He says, been so busy the last 2 months since my mom passed away on the 29th of April. Spend time with your loved ones. I'm sorry to hear that. I feel like you've had a lot of loss, in the past, and I'm so sorry to hear all that, and I totally agree. You never know. And this week is another prime example of just things are crazy in the world, but even whenever things are smooth and copacetic, you never know. You never have anything guaranteed. I learned that when I had a random tree fall out of the sky in my Mustang back what was that now, probably 7-8 years ago, and just like the insurance adjuster was like, if you had been going 5 miles per hour faster or slower, you'd be dead, and I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And it's like, the craziest flukes happen all the time, and you never know. So definitely got to seize the day. And that's why, I've said in the past, certainly when it comes to loved ones and stuff, make sure that, yeah, you're spending all the time you can, but also same thing with cars. If you've always wanted something or, whatever, and you can reasonably afford it, do it while you can do it. I mean, I was even thankful, back in 2018, 2019, Beth and I went to the UK, we went to Europe, and those are things we had always wanted to do, and we finally did them, and we were so happy we did, because then literally 2020 happened, and we were like, holy crap, we timed this perfectly. Like, if we had put this off, and then we had our daughter and stuff, like, would we have ever gotten there? Like, and we put some of those trips on credit cards and stuff, which isn't the best idea all the time, but it was like, I'm happy we did, because we were able to have those experiences. And, again, tomorrow's never guaranteed. And the same thing, so many people ask me sometimes with cars, should I buy this thing, or should I, go for the fun thing and, sacrifice something else or whatever? And I'm like, obviously everyone's different, but like, I'm a firm believer in enjoy things while you can. Same thing, even, if Raphael asking about his, TRD motor, tomorrow's not guaranteed. That car is not guaranteed. Someone could, do something crazy, or, there's all kinds of things that can happen that, enjoy stuff, to the fullest. And, you have to worry about the future, and, make sure you're not just burning all your bridges and, trashing everything in your warpath, but like, really you got to enjoy everything, and don't save something for the next person. Don't wait till the next day. If you can do it today, do it, enjoy it, and live life, but anyway, it's enough unsolicited advice for me. But let me see. Thanks so much though for stopping by, Jay, though, and I hope the channel can give you a nice little distraction from all the crazy busyness and the rough times there. Let me see. TFI says, speaking of Italian tune-up, my friend Florida's mom's Acura TSX and a chunk of carbon shot out of the exhaust. VTEC really did kick in that time. That's exactly why you want to do that. That's funny. That must have been really hilarious to witness. That's crazy. And Raphael says, I never beat up on her and about to hit 40,000 miles at 5 years. Nice. That's awesome. And I'm glad you're having a good time with it. And Betsy says, finally saw an Ioniq 9 at my local dealer. It looks great in person. That's awesome. I have yet to see one still. I saw one at the auto show, but haven't seen one on the streets yet. But I'm actually going to have one here this coming week for the press loan of the week. So I'm curious to try it out. That video is going to get no views, I'm sure. So, but that's one that they, I've in the past, sometimes you need to bridge a gap, and there's the more desirable cars that I wanted, and it's like, to get to that, I got to have sometimes a filler car, and the Ioniq 9 is a filler car, because almost certainly will be a waste of time for me. Even though I'm actually excited about the Ioniq 9, I think it's going to be really well done. If Kia EV9 is anything to go off of, it should be great. And it's just, again, poorly timed, sadly, right now, and just just going to be something I'm sure again, on YouTube doesn't make for great views, at least for, this channel. But let me see. And Austin, thank you so much for super chat. Sorry, I missed these last two here. Austin said, considering Chrysler 300, overall opinion. I love the 300. I did a review of the V6 a few years back whenever I started getting into used cars again. And then I just did the SRT version, or what do they call it for the final one there? Wasn't an SRT 6.4, whatever it was. Yeah, I did the final 300C, they called it. Yeah, I did the 300C right at that tail end of 300 production. All 300s are fantastic though. Great cruiser. A classier way to get into the Charger platform and all that. And I love 300s. I think they're really well done. The Pentastar V6 will go forever as long as it's been maintained well. I think it's a comfy ride. I think they still look great. I always liked the 300, honestly. So I think it's a great buy. It'd be a great daily driver, great cruiser. And yeah, I think it's a great choice. The only thing I'll say about those cars is you got to make sure, again, that you find one that has been maintained well. because that's, another one of those cars that attracts a lot of people that just go through them really quickly. I just see a lot of beat up 300s, and so finding a clean one that has a nice squeaky clean, maintenance record is going to be maybe the biggest challenge. If you don't want to spend a ton of money, or if you are comfortable spending some better money, then I'd say go for something like higher, low mileage, higher price tag 300s if you want something that's going to last you a good long time. But I love 300s. I think they're so good and really underrated, I think, honestly. And Raphael, thank you so much also for another super chat. He says, Matt, take us through your car ownership. I'll put mine in the chat. So his was a 78 Chevette, a 1984 Celica GTS. Man, you've had some really fun cars here. You're like 85 Supra, 81 280ZX, 94 Corolla, 97 Camry, 99 Ranger, 2007 Maxima, 2011 Sonata, 2003 Corolla, 2010 Camry TRD. That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I've gone through mine in the past. If you look at some of my past videos of, I ran a Carfax on all my old cars, and I go into more depth there. So definitely check those out if you haven't. But brief rundown. So started with a hand-me-down, which was my dad's 1997 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport, the Crosstrek before they called it the Crosstrek. And that car was great. I would have probably kept it longer if it wasn't an automatic. It was the 4-speed automatic, which sapped any fun out of that car, really. It was still a really fun little car, though. I mean, that thing had been through hell and back. 2 fairly severe accidents in it. One was a hit and run. We got T-boned when I was like 10 in like the year 2000. We got T-boned in it. Hit and run was crazy. And then they fixed it, though. And then my mom ran into the back of someone and smashed up the whole front. Still was fixed and still kept going after that. Yeah, so that was my first car. That only kept for, I mean, how long did I keep it for? Maybe 9 months. And then that's when the Subaru Legacy GT Spec B got traded into the dealer I was working at for 20 grand back when that was a $35,000 car the year before, and it only had 15,000 miles on it. My dream car was a WRX, but I, couldn't pass that up because it was just too good of a deal. And it was also more power, more luxury than any WRX I could have bought for the same money. So I decided to go for that. Drove that for about 5.5 years. I bought that in the summer of 2007. Kept it until the summer of 2013. So actually about 6 years that I had that, I believe. And then there's a brief period of overlap between that and BRZ. I bought the BRZ in 2012. Kept that for, what was that, about 2 years or so. And then 2014, spring of 2014, sold it or traded it in for the Mini Cooper S, the R56 2007 or 2008 Mini Cooper S. Kept that for 6 months because that car fell apart, and there's a whole saga of that unfolding on YouTube if you ever want to go back and watch my mini playlist. And then EcoBoost Mustang, 2015 EcoBoost Mustang, kept that until, was it summer of 2016? So I got that fall of 2014, kept it till summer of 2016, and then traded in for the first Mustang GT, kept that for 11 months. And then after those 2 major accidents in it, I decided the car was cursed. Traded it in for another 2016 Mustang GT there in 2017. Kept that until the Bullet arrived in 2018. It was a 2019 Bullet. Kept that for 5 years until last year, whenever I unfortunately had to sell that. And now have the Fiat 500e after a gap of about 9 months of having no car at all, aside from Beth's Mach-E. So that's my car history there. And so it's crazy. The longest I've actually owned a vehicle, probably really close to being a tie between that Legacy and the Bullet. So yeah, good times. And curious if anyone else, if they have any fun car histories they'd like to share too. But great question, and thanks so much for the super chat again, Raphael. And let me see here. So your boy says, what are your thoughts on getting a Stingray or a Z06 when it comes to the C7? Um, I mean, Z06 is good. To me, Z06 was a bit of a mess dynamically, just because it was so much power. And I feel like, at least my experiences with Z06, it was fun. It was very tail happy, but it just didn't put power down well. Now, this was again 10 years ago when I was reviewing them. I actually haven't been in a C7 Z06 since probably 2015 or whatever. But yeah, so maybe tire technology has improved to the point of making that thing actually hook up better in the back. But Z06 is cool. I personally, though, if you're gonna go for C7, I think Stingray is really the sweet spot still. It's enough power to have fun on the streets with. It's really good value, and it's just still got all the same great sounds and all that. And there's so much aftermarket stuff you can do to a regular C7 if you want to have more power, or whatever. You can always do that. I don't know the gap in price between going from C7 Stingray to Z06. If it's a small gap, maybe just go for the Z06 if you're after a bunch of power anyway. But if it is a larger gap in price, especially, then that steer me towards Stingray, I think, if I were you. But yeah, I mean, both obviously are still very fun either way. And let me see. Raphael says Teslas are solid cars. I don't care about politics, but I just don't like minimalists, so they don't work for me. Still hoping for a used e-tron GT. Yeah, those are definitely depreciating nicely, those anti-cons, but they're still, I mean, they started so high from a price standpoint that they're still, a good bit more expensive than a comparable Model S, at least from what I've seen. But yeah, the interior is definitely minimalist in the Teslas for sure. And Jay says, thinking of trading my 22 ILX A-Spec with 49,000 miles for a 2012 WRX STI with 91,000 miles. 17 and a half for the Subaru. Any thoughts or inputs? I don't know about pricing as far as whether that's good or bad. As far as, I mean, I guess it comes down to how much you are worried about reliability. If you don't mind, the occasional issue, things like that. I mean, I'll be honest, my first reaction to hearing about a 91,000 mile STI is to be very cautious. I would probably stay away from a car with that high of miles, because STIs don't hold up. Even, I mean, if they're stock, they can if you're really gentle on them, but they just don't seem to hold up very well. So anything with high miles on an STI scares me. Again, maybe it doesn't scare you, or, if you don't mind, again, the issues that might pop up, it's a fun car. And otherwise, I mean, I love that generation of STI. I think they're my favorite looking ones of the bunch. It's really, I think, the sweet spot of, nice, simple interior, again, great looks, great power, and all that. So if it has been maintained perfectly and it is completely stock and always has been completely stock, if you can actually verify that, which is hard to verify sometimes, but in that case, maybe. I still think there's just so much other things I'd recommend if you want a fun daily that's, sporty like that. I mean, there's so many phenomenal deals right now as far as like you can get like a Focus ST, or you can get like a Fiesta ST for like, I think they're now under 10 grand, which is another car I really need to revisit, because that's probably one of the best performance values right now is Fiesta ST for very little money. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, 17 and a half, if that's kind of the price range you're shooting for. Yeah, that would kind of make me nervous, honestly. Trying to think of other solutions and other options. There's a lot of stuff, obviously, so I'll leave it to you to, if there's anything else that jumps out at you. But there's just, that'd be a roll of the dice for me personally. I wouldn't do it myself, but yeah, everyone's different. Hopefully I helped you a little bit, Jay. And Decepticon says, yo, Matt Maran in the house. Thanks for stopping by, Decepticon. And Dave says they had a Matrix vibe with a 6-speed manual and engine that revved higher. Yeah, I think that's the one we were talking about earlier, the 2ZZ or whatever it was. And yeah, really just, again, fun stuff that I miss. Some of those oddball cars, like, obviously Toyota has a lot of great actual sporty sports cars and stuff, but the idea of just like putting a fun engine in a regular car, you don't see a whole lot of that anymore, and I kind of miss some of that. And B. Mitchell said, my car flipper buddy sold a 225,000 mile Vibe about 3 years ago to an idiot, still running today, 100,000 miles later with minimal maintenance. Wow. Yeah, that's about as good of a testament as you can give right there. And Raphael says, my 2011 Sonata had 230,000 miles when I traded it in for this Camry. No issues but the wipers. That's awesome. And, again, I'm sure you are one of those people that maintain it very well. And that's, I think, I've said this in the past. I apologize if I'm repeating myself for people who are regular live streamers. But, I think that the real big problem for Hyundai and Kia is that they do depreciate so fast, and that attracts people that, maybe have a little less money to spend on maintenance, and accelerates the wear and tear on those cars beyond what you would typically see from their first owners. And I think that's kind of the problem, is a lot of people get this impression about Hyundai and Kia, but they're getting the impression from the fourth owner of the car with the bumper hanging off. Like, if their bumper's hanging off, they're probably not doing oil changes meticulously. So, like, no wonder, like, it blew up at 100,000 miles or whatever the case is. So, like, there's just, I think, obviously there's still a lot of trashed Camrys and stuff too, but, like, typically, again, it's just the mentality of, I'm buying, a Toyota or a Honda because I want reliability, and therefore I am someone who actually thinks about reliability and maintenance, which is something that, again, is maybe a distant thought, if a thought at all, for a lot of buyers of any vehicle in general. So I think that's, and I know, yeah, Raphael, you're not the only one too. There's another person I remember who, I think it was Zachary, commented. I don't know if he's here tonight. I think his mom's got a Sorento or something with like 200 and some thousand miles. It's doing great too. So they're certainly out there. I see them also on the high mileage Facebook page that I follow all the time. There's high mileage Hyundais and Kias that, it all comes down to maintenance. It really does. And Triton Car Guy, thanks for stopping by. And Vishal says, did you see the report of Maserati possibly being for sale soon? Also saw an article that Lexus LFR prototype was spotted testing. Yeah, the LFR, I mean, maybe there's some production bodywork on it now, but they've been doing testing of all those, homologated race cars for years now. I don't know when that's actually coming. As far as the Maserati thing, that's another thing that keeps popping up in the news. I covered it in the weekly update, probably 6 months ago, about this idea that, some executive or someone mentioned, the idea that Maserati could be one of the things that's up for sale if this whole Stellantis, fiasco gets worse, or they need a lifeline. But it's been refuted multiple times. Stellantis has said over and over again, like, Maserati's not for sale. We have all these plans. It's going to be like really great. And, I've been hearing more recently, I think in the past week or so here, that the idea is that Maserati and Alfa will collaborate, but even they won't merge. It's like they want to keep all these things separate, but that there could be more collaboration between those two brands. And there already kind of is, but, that there could be more of that. But, I don't know if selling Maserati would help them that much. I mean, I'd like to see, again, Maserati have a great fully fledged, lineup. And I think there are, again, cars coming. They're just kind of in this dead zone right now where they just have the Grecale, which I just saw Grecale today. They have that. And then, you have the, MC20, and then, everything else is kind of, they're saying there's going to be a new Quattroporte, there's going to be a new Levante, and, those are all coming. It's just taking a while. But, Maserati is definitely, I guess, has value as a brand, but it's definitely struggling. That's another great used value. I should probably actually do another one of the, any of those Maseratis, because they're so cheap. I did a used Ghibli with a tune, like, I don't know, is that probably almost 10 years ago at this point. But even back then, it was a really good deal. But yeah, there's some good things, a little bit, again, sketchy with reliability, but, some really solid stuff, from them if you get lucky, and again, have one that's been well maintained. And let me see here. Dave says also they had a dealer add-on supercharger for the Matrix Vibe. I don't know if I remember hearing about that. That's awesome. I mean, because I know there was other supercharger kits available at that time period from Toyota. I know Scion TC had one available. And that was kind of the thing that Toyota certainly did do. So I very easily believe that. I don't remember it being on a Matrix, but that's awesome. That's cool. Thanks for sharing, Dave. B. Mitchell said, actually, the Vibe was a badge engineered Matrix. Yeah, rather than the other way around. Right. Yeah. Yeah. The Vibe was always like the one that was, coming after. And yeah, it's so many fun things back then, like the Vibe and those partnerships. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward here too, as companies again struggle to survive. That's going to be something we're going to see come back in a big way, I think. That's cool. B. Mitchell said he was at the reveal at SEMA way back when. That's really cool. And TFI says that supercharger kit for the 1ZZ FE is super rare. I saw one for sale locally about 4 years after I sold my 03 Corolla. Nice. That's crazy that it's really rare. That's wow. Yeah, because I never even heard of it. That's nuts. And let me see. Luke saying 70,000 miles. I'm not sure. I guess it was about something earlier. I apologize, Luke, that I missed what you're referring to there. But let me see. Dave also says it was also available at GM dealers for the Vibe. Wow, that's also surprising. That's probably even more rare. That's crazy. Let me see. B. Mitchell said he saw snow flurries in North Dakota in 1984, and that was depressing. And then a week later, it was 98 degrees. That's crazy. TFI is reminiscing about the boy band. And let me see here. Sorry, my chat just reloaded here. Where were we? So Nicholas says, I saw a lot of Miatas when I visited Kamakura, Japan, and they look gigantic on the 1,000-year-old roads. Right. And that's exactly why, the Japanese have no interest in our giant cars. And even if you sold them over here with no tariffs or whatever, or sold them there with no tariffs, people still mostly wouldn't want them. I mean, you still see the odd Corvette or something that's been imported, but really it's just, it makes sense to stick to the stuff that is made for your market. Jay says, she was only 46 years old and passed away from a stroke. Did not expect the day to come so soon. Thinking about, wow, that's crazy. I'm so sorry to hear that, Jay. Man, that's the unexpected ones. I think are even the worst. Because obviously there's no good way. It's also very agonizing whenever it's a long drawn out thing, but it's I'm very fortunate that that's something I have not had to worry about recently. But you never know. And so, hope you're enjoying the small little, wins you can, Jay, with hopefully some warm sun, some vitamin D, and hopefully has some fun drives and good memories, to think back on there. And so sorry again. And let me see. So so B. Mitchell's talking about there not being enough room for cars. He says he's had 51 cars. That's crazy. And Jonah says, how's the Spec B doing now? I don't know, unfortunately. So I sold it to a guy who put a bigger turbo on it. He lived in Connecticut, and I think he was actually a cop, and he had it for a few years. Then he sold it to a girl in Florida, and she put like a Nardi steering wheel on it. She put some coilovers on it. She did she was autocrossing with it, really having a fun time with it. It was so cool because I was able to follow the car's life, and it was the best. I loved, seeing, what was going on with it and seeing her enjoy it. And then I guess she said that something happened, I think, with the turbo, which again, you put a giant turbo on it, not going to be great for longevity, but I think something went and it sidelined the car. And I think it was kind of in the just parked for a little while she was trying to, get the money to get it back on the road. And then I think she ended up getting it fixed at some point. And then I asked her for an update whenever I did my last Carfax update video on all my old cars, which I think was about 2 or 3 years ago at this point. And she said that she lost the car in a relationship fallout or something. I don't know the details. I thought it was her car. I don't know. So it's none of my business, but I don't have any contact with the new owner or what's going on with it. So I do need, maybe since I have some of these gaps in the schedule here later this summer, maybe I'll do a new Carfax video if you guys be interested in seeing that, because I already know that unfortunately the 97 Subaru is probably off the road. It looked like it had some kind of other accident or something, and ended up with a salvage title, I believe, and then finally I think it just ended up in a junkyard and got crushed. But I don't think that's been confirmed. It might still be sitting somewhere rotting, but I've never had any intel to find that car, but it's not on the road anymore. Legacy now, my only hope of figuring out what's going on with it is with Carfax. So or guys, also Googling, if you have the VIN numbers for all your old vehicles, which I do always save my VINs, Googling those, sometimes you'll pop up a Copart listing or other things. And I haven't done that either in years, so I need to do that again and see. Now you got me wondering. I should run a Carfax on it. And the others have held up pretty well, but I think BRZ had a motor blow, and then the new owner put a new motor in it, and I think it's doing well. I briefly chatted on Facebook with the person who owned it, and I think he was trying to sell it though. He was trying to sell it back to me, and I was like, this would be awesome, but I don't have the money. And then I don't know what happened to it after that. So that's another one I got to figure out. The Mini, I know when I did my last update, the Mini ended up getting totaled, unfortunately. So the Mini is no more. The Mustangs, I know last I checked, the EcoBoost was in the Netherlands, actually. After I traded it in, someone else owned it, I think in the Baltimore area for a while, and then they sold it off to the Netherlands. And I think last I checked, it was just still driving around in the Netherlands. And then the first GT, that was the problematic one. Last I saw, that thing was running around somewhere in Arkansas or something, and had hideous red badges on that guard green, paint color, which they plastic dipped the pony emblems, the GT. I mean, all just anyway. So that's what happened to that car. The second GT, I don't think anything really went on with that. I think that one's just been just living a normal life. I think that one was in Georgia. Bullet, I know where that's at. That's in Utah. Thankfully, that is one that I do get updates on every once in a while. And I'm very adamant about I'm going to keep track of that car, hopefully, forever, because it still holds a dear place in my heart. And so, yeah, but I should do another one of those videos someday if I can come up with any interesting developments. It might not be anything new to report, but definitely, again, check out those videos, anyone who hasn't in the past. And let me see here. TFI says his car history is 03 Corolla, 02 Saab 9.5 Aero with the manual. Nice. A 99 Saab 9.3 with a manual. Very cool. 99 Volvo S70 T5 with a manual. 18 Golf TSI with a manual. So basically, I have never owned a car with more than 5 gears. Wow, well, that's pretty incredible. And I mean, really fun choices too. I always have to commend people that go for the quirky stuff, the not common choices. That takes a little bit of bravery, and just also, I don't know, I guess it's the nonconformist in me or whatever, that's just doing something different is cool. And that's awesome. So yeah, thanks for sharing, TFI. And let me see. That tech guy said, what ultimately made you get rid of the BRZ for a Mustang? I own an FRS, would like a little more space being in my 30s. So for me, it was just that I couldn't afford the BRZ anymore. The BRZ was affordable back when I was single, and also just had less financial responsibilities and stuff. And then I started dating Beth, and going on dates and those types of things cost money, and also just other things of just trying to be a grown up, live not at my parents' house. All those types of things are the things that kind of made me need to get rid of the BRZ, and that's why I went to the Mini, and then Mustang ended up happening partially thanks to I did a little bit of crowdfunding for that back in 2014, because so many people were like, you're obsessed with Mustangs, get a Mustang, we'll help you. And so that was something that was done because of the help from the community there, with the EcoBoost. And but I always loved Mustangs, but I think a lot of people have made that transition like you, and that are looking for something more comfortable, more spacious, maybe the BRZ is, a little too raw, for, where you are in life as far as, getting a little older, wanting something with a little more comfort, maybe a little more space, all that. And I think that's very natural progression. I think it's a great step up, because you still have rear-wheel drive fun. You still have, just all the perks of, I mean, it's a two-door, so it's still kind of a similar vibe. Obviously, you lose out on the lightweight thing. You don't have as good of handling, but you still have a fun engine, I think, especially if you're going for a GT. You have a great Coyote V8, high redline, very similar to the BRZ's high redline. So it's a similar kind of fun. If you're going to Camaro or Challenger, I'd say it's a little bit more different, but with the high revving nature of the Coyote, it's a nice transition to go specifically to only Mustang from BRZ. It's just great because I get at that point I was really doing a lot of road tripping and stuff for the channel, and so Mustangs are just such good highway cruisers. Something you can't really say about BRZs in my opinion. They're fine, and I'd happily do it if I could afford a BRZ again. But it's just the Mustangs are great all arounder. It's more comfortable, more space, just more of everything really. And so I think it's a really nice step up for sure. Definitely test drive one. It's not for everyone. You have a giant long hood to look out of, and there's some compromises for sure. But if you don't mind the size change in particular, I think it's a great choice for sure. And Raphael said, as far as the bikes here, so I'm out of my element here. So, but he says 75 XR 75, 83 MB5, 88 TW 200, 88 SP 200, 93 Hurricane, 2001 DR 650S, 2001 Bandit 1200S, 2005 GSX 750, and a 2013 FJR 1300. I only know what like 3 of those are. But man, it's awesome you've been able to, try so many different ones over the years. It's very cool. And let me see. TFI, I like your revisionist history as far as getting rid of the BRZ there. And Vishal says, car history, hand-me-down 2016 Passat, current cars 2024 Jetta. Short and sweet, only having 2 cars ever. Nice. Austin says, my car history is ridiculous. 93 Cavalier, 93 Probe. It must have been fun to own a Probe. 2003 Corolla, 05 Celica GT. Nice. 05 Focus, 93 Del Sol. Very cool. Del Sol, I really wish they'd bring that back. That'd be so fun in modern times. 08 Mustang V6, 2010 GTI, 12 Civic Si, 14 Fiesta ST, 03 MR2 Spider. That's fun. 16 Veloster Turbo and 13 Mini Cooper. Nice. That's awesome. I'm curious how you like the MR2 Spider. Because, I reviewed one and I remember just feeling so slow, but now I feel like I'd be fine with it not being fast, and it'd just be really cool to have a mid-engine convertible. But it's hard to find a nice one of those these days. They're really, at least around here, they're pretty rare. But even when I search like nationally, it's just not a whole lot of MR2 Spiders out there. But great choices there over the years. And Jay says, completely stock. Thanks for your thoughts and inputs, Matt. Really appreciate it as far as the STI. Happy to help, and let me know if you go for it. I'd be very curious to see how it goes and how you enjoy it. But it's a lot of fun for sure. And OK Basis says car history for him is 93 Ford Explorer Sport, 92 Honda Civic CX hatchback. Nice. 05 Suzuki Reno. That's an interesting one. I'm curious how the Reno treated you. 03 Tiburon GT. That's a car you never see anymore. I feel like it's awesome. 99 Eclipse GSX. 95 Eclipse GSX. And then 99 GMC Sonoma. 97 Isuzu Ombre. That's fun. And a 14 Chevy Sonic RS. Nice. I'm really curious. I hope the Tiburon treated you well too. I'm curious about Tiburon and Reno for you as far as how those did over the years. Austin says, Ram 17. Okay, yes. Continuing with the comments here. 17 BMW 228i, 12 BMW 128, 19 Fiesta ST, and 17 500 Abarth. Yeah, great choices. So many fun cars there. And thanks for sharing. This is really fun to hear everyone's histories here. Okay, Basis is currently 17 Chevy Bolt EV Premier. Nice. And a Bolt is, yeah, that's another such a good value these days. And Raphael says, unless it's a Fisker, it will last you if you keep up the maintenance. That's true. Yeah, most stuff will. There's a few cars though where even, I guess it comes down to maintenance as far as if we're talking stuff that just breaks and needs fixing. Yes, you could keep anything on the road, no matter how much is wrong with it, as long as you have enough money to keep it going. But as far as like regular maintenance, there's a lot of stuff like that X5 we talked about earlier in the live stream here, where just so many things go in terms of this domino effect of the car just being worthless almost, and just ending up getting scrapped or whatever. You see, TFI says, yeah, Edmunds lost 80% of their value on their Fisker Ocean. I've only spotted 2 Oceans, and actually I've seen more Lamborghinis in Vancouver than Fisker Oceans. Nice. Yeah, I'm sure people in Vancouver probably want to know parts of that, and I don't blame them. Yeah, I actually have seen a few Fisker Oceans around here, and every time I see one, I'm like, I hope you got that thing for free. And even then, I don't think I would want one, just because of the safety issues of that thing being poorly put together and poorly programmed and everything. Oh man, yeah. What a wild ride that was for Fisker. And Chad, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, 03 Cavalier 2-door stick, loved it. Got submerged with me in it, and the news watched me swim out. Wow, that's crazy. Tried lying to my mom when I called from a Waffle House, and she said, you're on the news. Wow, what a story. Love that car. Well, I'm sad that it met a sad demise there, but man, yeah, it really went out with a bang. And almost took you with it. That's nuts. But happy you're able to get out of it. And man, that's got to be quite the news clip. Hopefully that was in the days of DVRs or some kind of recording, so you could have that forever. That's funny, man. Well, thanks for sharing. And poor old Cavalier. And let me see here. So Austin says, I'd rather not know what happened to my old cars, to be honest. Yeah, I can understand that. It is kind of tough sometimes. Like the Mini, seeing that the Mini, had been totaled was sad for sure. So, yeah, might be something best left, leaving that stone unturned. But let me see. Lancemoth says, my car history is a 90 F-150 regular cab short box, an 87 GMC 4x4, an 87 Mustang GT, and a 91 Buick Regal. That's cool. A 94 Dodge Spirit, 91 Chevy Lumina, a 91 Oldsmobile Sierra, and an 05 LeSabre and an 02 Silverado. Nice. Some good stuff there. Those Oldsmobile Sierras had some issues, but my family friend had like one of those things, and it just seemed like that thing kept going for a good long while. It was doing pretty well for them. This was again 20 years ago, but yeah, and the Regal too, the 91 Regal probably is a fun one too. Those things were so comfy because again, also had another family friend with a Regal. I think there was like a 95, but man, the seats in those things like so springy, but so like comfy, just rolling couch. That's funny. Thanks for sharing, Lancelot. And let me see. Lemoon said, finally got my dream car, a 2024 Mazda Miata RF. So happy. That's awesome. Congrats on getting your dream car. That's what it's all about. I hope you enjoy it to the fullest. Have a blast, and great choice too. I love Miatas. They're so fun. I'm looking forward to. I will actually have one again this summer for a week. And it's another one just like really, the GR Corolla and even the Elantra I just did, where it's like no reason to really recover it because I already said everything I needed to say last year, but I'm not going to say no to having a Miata for a week in the middle of the summer. So I'm going to have another one of those in a video on probably me just saying there's nothing really new for 2025. It's still a blast, and highly recommend Miata at the end. That's probably how it's gonna go. But thankfully those videos have been doing well, so I'm happy, and so I'll keep on doing the fun stuff, even if it's just a rehash. and I hope you enjoy yours. Yeah, so much. That's so great. And I'm happy that someone's bought a Miata as well, because it sounds like Miata sales, at least for the new ones, hasn't been super great this year. Unfortunately, even with the ND3 kind of refresh, which I thought would kind of improve that. So a little worried about Mazda with the Miata sales, but yeah, happy that you bought one and supporting the cause. That's awesome. And let me see. TFI says about the Saab lore. Ever since the Top Gear Saab episode aired back in 2012, I wanted a Saab. I got a Saab keychain from the mall and kept it until I bought my first Saab to learn stick in 2015. That's awesome. It's a fun story, and glad you, again, achieving goals, achieving dreams. That's what it's all about. That's one of the things I think it's so rewarding about the car hobby is, for some people, it's just a chore to find a car, and you're just carting them from point A to point B. But whenever you can live out your dream and be in your dream car and have that for your commute and for your companion in life, honestly, I think it's, to me, one of the, I'm obviously biased, but I feel like we could probably all agree that's one of the most rewarding kind of goal setting things to achieve. Because, other things, you achieve a goal, I don't know, you do something, you run a 5K or you do this or whatever. There's a lot of things where it's like, okay, I achieved this. I am proud of myself. I've done something. I've climbed Mount Everest, you name it, whatever the case is. And it's really cool you did that. And that's very rewarding as well. But to me, like with a car goal, you get to live that every day, and it's not just like a one and done thing or one great day and that's it. It's something you get to relive that every day and enjoy that. And that's something that really, outside of maybe getting to a dream home or maybe a dream job, there's not a whole lot of other goals in life where it's like, okay, I achieved this goal and now I'm able to enjoy it every day for a long time. And so that's one of the things I love about cars, I think, is it's especially if you're an ambitious person, it's one of those fun things to be able to achieve and check those boxes. And V Mitchell said, ditto everything Matt says about the S550 Mustangs except hood lengths. Then again, I have a 78 Lincoln Mark V, so don't tell me about long hoods. That's true. You've got quite the car to manage there with that one. I do not envy your yeah, I don't know, any kind of parallel parking situations you find yourself in, or any kind of regular parking situations you find yourself in. But I commend you for your skill of wielding such an unwieldy vehicle. That's got to be quite the handful. So, yeah, I would hate to. I'd have to back in everywhere I go. Maybe you do. Maybe that makes it easier. I don't know. Anyway, Raphael says, I started driving at 13, but I started motorcycles at 7. Have never looked back. That's awesome. And Austin says, handling was great, but it was really slow. As far as all the old cars here, let me see. As far as okay, if you're talking about, let me go back. Sorry, missed it. About the MR2. Thanks. Sorry, it takes me a minute to catch up here. Handling was great, and it was really slow. Yeah, so I guess that's probably why you got rid of it. I'm guessing eventually you probably wanted more power or something. But the MR2 was another one, though. You could get that supercharger kit for, I believe, if you could track it down and get some extra power out of it. But yeah, I still would like to revisit an MR2 someday. And Nicholas said he went from a Corolla into a GR86. Nice, great step up, and hope you're still having a blast in that. And Raphael says, in my whole life, I've seen one Lambo. It was a bubblegum pink Diablo. Wow, that's crazy. I just cannot wrap my head around that area you live in having no Lamborghinis whatsoever. Even in like really rural areas, I feel like there's always at least one or two at some point. Especially, I believe you're older than me, Raphael, or at least roughly my age. I feel like it's just crazy. You've only ever seen one. Someday you got to go someplace where there's a bunch of supercars, even if it's just a dealership, just to see them in person, because it's definitely something fun to see in person, I think. The OK Basis says the Reno was surprisingly good and reliable. The Tiburon was a lot of fun as well. Had an intake exhaust, intake manifold spacer, and coilovers, and was deceptively quick. That's awesome. I'm glad that both of them treated you really well. That's great. And yeah, but Suzuki Reno, I haven't seen one of those things in probably 10 years at least. That's one of those ones that was very briefly here and just just as fast disappeared off the roads, at least around here. That's crazy. And let me see. So TFI is talking about he test drove a new Scion FRS back in 2012. I was driving the 03 Corolla and getting used to driving a faster coupe with less visibility. As a new driver, that was nerve-wracking. I bet. Yeah, I mean, BRZ definitely. There was a few times there, again, learning the back end and the rear-wheel drive driving dynamics where it was a little hairy. But it's one of those things you cut your teeth on, and then I think once you get hooked on rear-wheel drive, it's really hard to give it up because it's just it's really fun to have that extra control of the back end and the extra fun and engagement that comes with that. And Truck Car Guy says car history, only counting personal cars I've owned, is 93 Honda Civic Coupe, 2012 Sentra, 2009 Toyota Corolla manual, 2003 Mitsubishi Lancer manual, and 2007 Dodge Magnum SXT. Nice. Yeah, I'm hoping the Magnum and the Lancer are still treating you well. I think one of them you said didn't have functioning AC. Hopefully the air conditioning is working now so that you're not out there sweating too badly in the Arizona heat. Let me see. Michelle says that's probably the most interesting story ever to be associated with a Cavalier. Probably that's a fair assessment of Chad's story there. And that's funny. And Raphael says it's not the Miata. The economy associated it's hard to reach for dreams. That's true. And there are others that have been struggling, but like surprisingly, BRZ is up. Like I think this is something like 20 to 30% or something this year so far. It's like BRZ is doing really well. WRX is down really badly. I kind of just realized I just saw the reports about this just recently that WRX is having a really bad year, and this was even before they started jacking up the price here in the past month and a half or whatever. So yeah, and WRX usually was a pretty solid seller. So that is a pretty big sign of how the enthusiast market is really hurting now. If obviously, again, prices going up, it hasn't helped things, but like you got people cutting back on WRXs and stuff. Again, obviously BRZ is selling well and others, but if, Miata's falling off and all this, I mean, it's I'm really worried about these slow volume cars because, does Mazda need to sell the Miata here? I think it's very important to their image and stuff, but from a business standpoint, no. Does Subaru need to sell the WRX? Not really. Do they need to sell the BRZ? Definitely not. And I said this, when I was doing my initial tariff rants back in April on the weekly update. I think that all the low volume sports cars, especially the affordable stuff that, people aren't going to stomach a giant price increase on, WRX now showing that probably as well. If the whole appeal of WRX, the fact that it's 30 grand or so, or 35, and now you can't get a premium for under $39,000, and then no one buys them anymore. And then car companies say, well, I can't sell a car no one wants to buy anymore, and I can't sell it any cheaper. It goes away. And this is, again, we will see how long all this stuff sticks around and what ends up happening with this fiasco that gets crazier by the day. But, I really hope we don't lose all the affordable sports cars. And I'm still thinking there's going to be some hard decisions that have to be made here with dropping models from lineups, especially stuff that's not made in America, which is all the great affordable sports cars. So we'll have to see. And Chris says, Matt, do you think Subaru will really announce a new WRX STI in October, allegedly at the Japan Auto Show? I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's going to be some kind of special edition, something again, just because, they already have kind of an STI in Japan with the S210 that debuted last, fall in Japan. And, especially if it's debuting in Japan, it makes me think it's another, again, special thing for them. Maybe they bring back the Type RA. Maybe they do, some other kind of thing. I don't know. But to me, it's probably something like that more so. I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. But especially you have to keep in mind, too, I know it doesn't feel like it's been that long, and WRX does sometimes stick around longer, but, we're already at this point, first model year is 2022. We're getting into the 2026 model year here. soon. So we're already 4 years in, and it's so hard to predict because, based on the old timeline of what they told us a couple years ago, whenever they discontinued the STI, in that announcement, they said STI, I don't remember, so I'm paraphrasing here, I'm probably getting it wrong, but something to the effect of like STI will return, and that, they're going to be probably having, the consensus was an electric STI coming in 2028. And so, do they still do that? Obviously, right now, the bet would be no, you're going to just stick to gas stuff, until 2029. But, do we see them stick to that plan? Right now, they're sticking to that plan. We see all these electric Subarus rolling out that they've been working on for years, the Trail Seeker, the Solterra, and there's others coming we know as well. So, is that going to be, the way that they go about this is they do, a new electric STI. We already have the Trail Seeker. There is, what is it, like 375 horsepower? Sounds perfect for an STI. That thing already does. I think Subaru said for the Trail Seeker is like a 4.3 seconds to 60 or something crazy. And then you put it in a smaller sedan, and you got, a low 4-second STI off the shelf using, the same motors and stuff that we see in other Toyotas and Subarus. Obviously not super unique or anything, and how many people would go for that, I don't know, but the performance would be there at least, from a straight line perspective at least. So I think, and knowing how product cycles are so long and stuff, I think if they were going to do an actual STI, at least for America, they would have done it by now. They would not have waited this long to debut it, and they wouldn't have canceled it in the 11th hour, all those years ago, whenever they did, and shocked everyone and disappointed everyone with that. So, and also, I think if they were going to actually do it, then they wouldn't have been doing this striptease of all these different other models, and now we have the TS version, with the year before was, the TR, and I think they're doing everything but an STI, and I think that that's deliberate because I don't think they want to actually give it more power. I don't think they want to go the full-blown STI route with it. So they, take one or two things here from Japan that they can and, bundle into some other new package, but I don't think we're going to get an actual STI. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think my bet is still they think that, EV is still going to be the way forward, and the way forward for STI will be to have an electric one with that Trail Seeker powertrain or more, but 375 horsepower is a safe bet. And, it'll be an electric STI for a next generation of that car in 2028, 2029, something like that. That's I think what we can expect. So we'll see what happens. But I know they were teasing the one little thing again. I don't think it's anything legit for America. Honestly, at this point, though, it doesn't even matter. Like, people have already made their peace with it. There's already mods you can do to WRXs for this generation to make them, well over STI power levels. So I don't even think that matters. I think that the bigger thing they could do for the enthusiast community right now is bring over the wagon version that is literally for sale in Mexico. Like, it's in North America already. And there's no good reason to not sell it here. I get that it's expensive to crash test it and certify it and all that stuff, but like, that's if they're, especially now, if they're worried about WRX sales cratering, how do you stop it from cratering? Make it more practical. Make it so that less people have to say, well, I need an SUV, by giving it a wagon version. And now, hopefully, maybe that's the blessing in disguise here with WRX sales dropping off a cliff, is maybe that'll finally force them to bring the wagon version that's been in Australia for years, that's been in, now Mexico and other places, Japan, obviously. I just hope that we finally get that, Lavorg here with the WRX wagon. But we'll see. And let me see here. Lancelot says the coolest car I've ever seen is a kit replica at a car show when I was a kid while Knight Rider was still in the air. Man, that must have been wild. Yeah, to actually see that while Knight Rider was still in the air, that would be a real special experience, I'm sure. That's awesome. And whoever that owner was must have been the coolest person around. to have an actual kit replica when that show was all the rage. And Lancer or Trent Carger says I currently still own the Lancer and the Magnum, right? And I'm happy that they're still with you there and you're still enjoying them. Let me see. Vishal says, agreed, Matt. As a car enthusiast, it's rewarding buying the car that you want. After a year of saving, I was able to buy the Jetta, first new car ever. So it'll always be special to me for that reason. Yeah, and that's awesome. And that's those memories that you make and those things, they really do make an impact. And that's what I even say in my little headline or tagline here on the channel. If you go to my about page or whatever, is like I helping people find a car they will love so that every day is just a little bit more enjoyable for them with a fun commute. Even if everything else in your life sucks and everything in the world sucks, if you just enjoy the drive, even just a little bit, and that boosts your mood just a little bit, if I can help people find that little solace in their day, the little bit of predictability, the little bit of fun that they can always count on, I think that's huge in my opinion, and that's what it's all about for me. Raphael says the Magnum was so cool. They just rusted out terribly. Yeah, that's a shame. And I think that's a problem that the Trent car guy has with his as well. And I know when I did my junkyard walk a couple of years ago, there was one there too that was just super rusted out. It's a shame because Magnum was another super cool idea with the wagons there, and I wish Dodge would bring that back. I feel like that would do really well actually these days, maybe. But who knows? Anyway. Vishal says, I think BRZ is doing well because it might be easier to get than the GR86. Maybe, but I mean, if you look at sales numbers, though, GR86 sells way more still. I think BRZ is improving, but GR86, I think, outsells BRZ like, I think it's like 4-1, something like that. Because I think last year, again, numbers are foggy, so don't quote me, but I think GR86 caught close to that 10,000 units. I think BRZ was like 3,000 or 4,000, if I remember correctly. I don't know, maybe slightly different, but yeah, regardless, GR86 does, at least it has for a long time, sold better, and it's always been that way, strangely enough. So I'm not sure, if there's a problem with supply. I think GR86 supply is pretty decent. I think the big thing that people who buy BRZs often say is the BRZ you can order. You can't order the GR86 because Toyota's weird about that, where you just have to wait or find something on a lot. You can't order a Toyota, which is maddening. But other than that, yeah, it's very easy to find GR86s, I think. But Trent Carter says, mine is surprisingly little rust given that it was an East Coast car. That is surprising. And I'm guessing, yeah, with you being now out west there, you're not going to have to worry about the rust. So that's great. Glad yours is doing well. I'm glad I was wrong about remembering about the rust there. I guess it must be blending in my memory of the other Magnum at the junkyard that I saw with yours. So I'm glad yours is doing well. And Lance West says, I'm lucky this state only uses sand in the winter on the roads. Nice. Well, yeah, you are lucky because, man, the salt just kills everything around here. B. Mitchell says, I can only do highlights unless we go to midnight. First, 1974 Ford LTD Brougham, two-door hardtop and ivy green metallic. That's a fun first car. Again, a lot of car to handle there, even in two-door form. And oldest is a 1931 Nash 890 Ambassador, $400 almost dead parts car. And the newest is the 19 Mustang. Nice. Wow, a 31 Nash. That's crazy because I don't think I even knew Nash made stuff that old. I think the oldest Nashes I've even ever seen pictures of is like late 30s. So that must be quite the rare car. That's nuts. I still want an old car. I still want something from the 40s so bad someday. Anyway, that's awesome. I'm so happy you had so many highlights there and so many fun things over the years. And Raphael says Subaru doesn't need the WRX. Mazda has a brand identity with Miata. True. I mean, I'd say WRX is, from a branding standpoint, I know Subaru probably doesn't agree anymore, but like, I think for enthusiasts though, like WRX is very important. And I think that Subaru is under accounting for the sway of the enthusiasts that still buy Subarus. I think there's some goodwill there where you have people who came out of WRXs maybe, and maybe they ended up going into an Outback XT or something like that. But I think the WRX is also an important gateway into the Subaru brand for people. And so I think, if you get rid of that gateway, sure, everyone just goes and buys Crosstreks or whatever. But like, I think there are a lot of enthusiasts that, get acclimated to the brand and then stick with it, even with the disappointing offerings that they have beyond the WRX. People still like them enough to go for them, or it's just because they like the turbo motor from a WRX and you can get the same basic thing in an Outback. And so they, do that or whatever. So I think it'd be a mistake for sure to get rid of WRX, even if, it's not a sales leader for them. So, but we'll see. Again, Subaru makes some questionable choices, and I wouldn't count on them to, use logic all the time because, their sales are great in every other way, but just so many low-hanging fruits that they still don't bother with, which is just crazy to me. So Cam, thanks for stopping by here. And Austin says, I think WRX is done after those price hikes. People overlooked the flaws due to the low price of entry, but now there's no compelling reason to buy one. Yeah, I think the only thing that will save WRX in its pricing is if everything that it competes against also goes up a lot. And I think Subaru needs to take a look in the mirror and be like, okay, well, now the premium is $39. We got to bring back the base one. And maybe it's hard to do because they, maybe they don't make the double screen thing that you got in the base WRX for this generation anymore. I don't know. But you got to bring back the base one. You can't have premium as your starting point if 39 grand is where you're going to start at, So I'm hoping 26, brings a return to the base one. Unfortunately, that base one's still going to end up probably being, 36 or something. But at least it's not 39. It's a little bit better. But that's really the thing. I think Subaru's getting hammered early here because they are one of the first to jump prices up a good bit. And everyone else is trying to hold it steady and still just keeping their fingers crossed that things get back to some form of normal in the market, at some point, or the tariffs get dropped before they have to, pull the trigger on price increases. So, this whole thing might be irrelevant in a few months because if WRX is 39, maybe GR Corolla will start at 50 in 6 months. Maybe, everything will be insanely expensive. Mustang will be $75,000 to start. I don't know. Who knows where how crazy things get. But so if you have something like that kind of a scenario where $39,000 is relatively cheap, again, I think it's still going to do a giant amount of damage to the sales because you're still going to have people that say, well, that's nice. Everything's expensive now. So it's not badly priced, relatively speaking, but I can't afford it because my wages didn't go up as fast as tariff pricing did, and so people are just not going to buy either way. But that would be the only redeeming thing for that price is if, everything else gets expensive in the same amount. But everyone else is holding it. GR Corolla is still sticking to 40 grand for now to start. Everyone else, I haven't seen any, large price increases for anybody else in that enthusiast space. So, we'll see what happens. And let me see. Austin also says Dodge should bring back the turbine cars. Just saw TFL's video on it. Such a cool concept. Yeah, I actually saw that one turbine car in person once, and it was really, really cool to see, and that'd be fun. Turbine cars. It's just a great, glimpse into the mentality of that time period. That was like a reasonable thing to try. And actually, they drove really well. It was actually a really well done car. But it'd be fun to see that these days. I guess with how no one cares about pedestrian safety, if we had a giant turbine on the front of a car, no one would even bat an eye. So it'd be totally fine. But yeah, that's crazy. A.B. Mitchell said Charlie Nash started making cars in 1918. Nice. I appreciate the little history tidbit there. We'll have to all save that here for our car trivia nights. But yeah, I didn't know. I had never really looked into the story of Nash. I'm sure there's some interesting stuff there. Michelle says, how to get Matt riled up, bring up Subaru. Absolutely right. You guys know me so well. Apologies for all the rants. Cam says, just rewatched when the Z Nismo tried to kill Matt after he was criticizing it. Yeah, that one was still insane to me. And I've talked to so many reviewers since, And they're like, yeah, Z Nismo drove great in their opinion. And it was just me. I don't know what was wrong with the car I had. Yeah, I'm like, maybe Nissan has another Z Nismo I could try. Part of me like wants to try, part of me doesn't, just because I don't want it to try and kill me a second time. But yeah, I feel like I have to give that car another try because, I mean, there's still other shortcomings, like the plastic paddle shifters are completely unacceptable. There's a lot of other things about it that just don't justify its price tag. But at least I hope the handling is as good as everyone else makes it seem like it is. Because for me, it just, yeah. But thanks for rewatching that one. I appreciate the rewatches as well. I'm gonna probably actually do a little bit more of like highlighting old videos in the future because now that I don't have the weekly updates, I'm gonna have a little bit more of a gap between uploads every once in a while, and so I think I'm going to start doing some more community posts and highlighting some of the fun stuff like I did. Everyone was talking about the Lobo F-150 last week, and so I shared my video of here's me driving a 700 horsepower F-150 street truck that was done that I did back in 2018, and just sharing those things whenever they kind of are tying in with current events or something like that. I think I'm going to try and do some more of that. But thanks for rewatching. That always is great. And if you enjoyed it as much the second time around. And Philip says, grabbing a launcher and at 35 grand while you can. Absolutely. 100%. I mean, I think Hyundai has committed to holding prices till the end of this month. And then who knows what's going to happen after that. And so, yeah, you got a week. To jump on it here. I actually I'm trying to still work out a deal on the Mach-E. Those of you who remember, I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. Trying to see if we can get out of the Mach-E before the tax credit goes away, since it seems like the politicians are now all of a sudden in a big hurry to try and quickly nix the EV tax credit even faster than before. So trying to maybe capitalize on that before that goes away. And also these, good deals before the tariff pricing gets crazy. So I was trying to do something with the Mach-E, but then this past week they announced a recall for the Mach-E, where the 12-volt battery, when it dies, can potentially trap people inside. It's you can get out of it just fine on the front, but the issue is this has happened, I guess, a couple of times with kids, where you get out of the car and your 12-volt battery has died, and that kills all the accessories and stuff. And so you can get out of the car fine because there's a manual release in the front, but then if you have a kid in the back that you're retrieving them out of a car seat or something, they can get stuck because they can't get themselves out. And there's been a couple instances where people have had to just smash the glass because they can't get into it, because you have to jump the 12-volt battery, which is in itself a giant pain in the butt to you have to jump there's a little tow hook in the front of the car. You got to pop out that plastic piece. There's a lead there. You do that to pop the frunk, and then you get into the frunk. You got to take a bunch of plastic crap off under the frunk area, get to the actual 12-volt, and then jump that, and then that gets the doors functional again and gets everything else working, which I don't love, but that's one of the things that a lot of these EVs actually have. Their 12-volt goes down, the whole car just bricks, and it can lead to some issues. And it sounds like Ford's going to come up with some kind of solution where they have the 12-volt stay juiced for 12 minutes with the DC-DC converter, with the actual large battery pack powering it for a longer period of time. Anyway, so that recall is a stop sale. And as a result, trying to unload our Mach-E is not going to be a successful endeavor until the stop sale is lifted, because no one wants a trade-in that they can't sell, once it's traded in. So we're kind of stuck with the Mach-E for the time being, which sucks, because we were thinking about getting a new Mach-E because the lease deals are really good right now. But Ford's Power Promise crap or whatever ends the first week of July here, and then who knows about pricing for them and the Mach-E. But if they don't resolve this stop sale before July 7th, then I'm probably going to be out of luck there. And I can't even trade in for anything else either, because there's other ideas we were thinking about going with, but it's we literally can't get rid of the Mach-E now because of this stupid recall. So we'll see, but I'm going to try. I still want to try and get out of it. Again, at least if I can capitalize on the tax credit, that's good enough. Even if, tariffs bump the price up a tiny bit, at least it's not $7,500, hopefully. So still going to see if I can get a deal, before that goes away. But unfortunately, that's kind of in a holding pattern as of this week. And Austin says the turbine was 40 grand, not corrected for inflation alone, according to Mopar historian. Nice. I don't. I think they only sold, or they even sell them. B Mitchell probably has better info on this. But I thought they actually sell them. I thought they only made a handful of them, and they were all just kind of like cars for Chrysler, but I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, turbine is super cool. And Brian says, do you have any Ford contacts, and can you tell them to stop with the navy blue plastic for the Maverick? Black plastic, please. I have Ford contacts just with my, going on events and stuff, but nothing that I could change for sure. Stuff like that, the way to send a message about that kind of stuff is to tell your dealer, I'm not buying this car because it has navy blue plastic, because then they can go and complain to their regional rep and kind of pass it up the chain there. You can also just do feedback through Ford and their site and their customer service and stuff, and give feedback that way. But unfortunately, me saying anything would not help. Yeah, I mean, personally, actually, I have no problem with the navy blue plastic. I think it's kind of a nice switch from black everything in cars. But yeah, I know for some people it's probably not their cup of tea. And Flynn's sharing his car history. He says 1990 Cutlass Calais. That's a fun one. 92 Olds Tornado, nice. 96 Camaro. 1978 Trans Am. 2003 GMC Sierra Denali. 2001 Harley Davidson F-150. 1998 Trans Am 6-speed. 2006 SRT8 Charger. And 2011 F-150 Raptor. All kinds of fun stuff. That's awesome, Flynn. You had quite the history there. That's cool. And I see Vishal enjoys the ransom. I'm glad you do. And let me see. Rafi says maybe just a bad alignment as far as I'm not sure. As far as the Nissan Z Nismo, yeah. It might be. I mean, the crazy thing, whenever I get a bad press car, is like these cars typically have been like, gone over and made sure that everything is up to snuff. Like, you don't want to be sending a review unit out that has bad tires, a bad alignment, all this other stuff. I mean, sometimes things fall through the cracks, and sometimes, there are the occasional things like that happen. But like that car, I mean, especially that car should have been gone over and made sure that everything is, top notch, because it's a performance vehicle and people are judging the performance. Having sketchy tires or bad alignment or whatever is just not a good look for the brand, because then you end up with videos like mine. But let me see. Chad says not just turbines would be turbines would be a cool subject for you. Neon, SE, SRT4s, Prowlers, T-Birds, etc. That'd be fun if we had turbine power for all those. But I mean, yeah, so many fun cars over the years that Chrysler Group did. With the Prowler and the SRT4 and all that. Cars I still want to review someday. And Cam Jam says, did you notice that the road noise in the Civic Hybrid was bad? Hearing mixed things. I think Civic actually is one of the more refined ones in its segments. It's certainly better than like Corolla and a lot of the others. I think best road noise in the segment though is still going to be Mazda 3. If Mazda 3's not one of the, or if you like the idea of a hybrid and stuff with the Civic, I think Civic's really good. My videos always show off really bad road noise, just because the roads I'm on oftentimes are very rough, and also my mic setup. Most people wear a lav and they have these road things that are these giant, bricks on their chest. I just have the mic that's attached to my camera that's mounted to the windshield, so you get a lot more road noise. You also get a lot more engine noise, which is why I do it, but it's a lot more ambient noise. So my videos probably going to be, in some cases, sometimes a little bit, it might sound way worse than it actually is in person. But I think also some of the lav mics, if you watch videos of people wearing those really isolate your voice and you don't hear a whole lot of anything else. And this is why they have very quiet exhaust sounds, or they maybe have a different mic. They mix in exhaust note and stuff like that but then it's not authentic, because then you're playing around with how much people are hearing in the video. So I kind of like, even if it's a more rough approach, just kind of saying, here's everything the camera's picking up right there by the windshield. and just leave it at that. Because the labs, I mean, I've done that a couple times in the past, just tried it out, and it's so isolating. So if you're watching videos where it's like, wow, that sounds completely silent, all I'm hearing is their voice, it's probably the mic more so than the car. Some people do a better job than others at representing that stuff. But just keep that in mind when you're watching videos, that mics definitely play into what you're actually hearing. I think the best thing to always do, if you can, is test drive one. Even if you can't test drive a hybrid, just test drive a Civic of the current generation. That'll give you enough of an idea on your own roads, what it's actually like in person for yourself, and whether that's, going to be, good or bad for you. And Austin says, really surprised no manual release for years. Occupants release for years occupants isn't mandated. Yeah, so manual release is mandated. It's for some of the seats. I think the front ones is mandated, and I believe the back ones you can. So in the front, the Mach-E, there's an electronic release, but then you pull it harder and you pull it back further, and that's the manual one. And I think the back seat, it's just, instead of pulling it back harder, I think you just hold it there. Whatever the process is, it's not easy to do for a kid, even if the kid isn't belted in. And and I mean, like, our daughter, for example, can't get herself out of her actual 5-point harness still. So like that's hurdle number one in that kind of a situation. And then the second hurdle is, again, them having the muscle to pull back a manual release. Or like some people say, oh, always have one of those glass breaking hammers in your car, and it's like, that's great, and if you're an adult and you're stuck in a car, certainly a good idea. But like for a little kid or something, again, that doesn't solve the problem, because you can have a little kid, they're not going to swing a hammer hard enough to smash a window. So even if it is a really good hammer, it's just like, it's not probably not going to work. So that's why they're having this recall, and it's important to have the recall. Just unfortunately is badly timed for my specific situation here. All right, so we're over the 2-hour mark, so we'll do the last few questions here and sign off. So B. Mitchell says, talking about the weather here in Minneapolis for him. We see Chad says, thanks for an amazing chat as always, Matt and fellow peeps. I hate that I missed so many due to work. Well, all good. Yeah, thanks for stopping by when you can, Chad. And thanks for all the great comments and questions and discussion tonight. Austin says they didn't sell them. They let the families try them for 3 months at a time. Interesting. Okay. And they couldn't get production costs low enough for them to be viable. I believe they made 55 of them and 9 remain today. Wow, that's crazy. And B. Mitchell with the Walking Encyclopedia here says there were 50 turbine prototypes that were scattered around the country. They were loaned. Okay. So for 30 days, based on a drawing of those interested, bodied by GIA, most had to be exported or had to be exported or destroyed. Wow, that's crazy. Thanks for the info on that. That's fun to hear. And sad though that they didn't stick around for more of them. And let me see. E85 says, who would spend 35 grand of their hard-earned cash on a Kia or Hyundai? You're out of your mind. Everyone likes different things. I personally think there's a lot of really good stuff that Hyundai and Kia make. Especially Elantra is so much fun. Jose says, have you forged a better path with BMW to get more press cars, like maybe an M variant? I had the X5M last year, and the M60i version of the X7 here a couple weeks ago as well. BMW, the way it works with getting press cars from them, for me in particular, being so far away from all their fleet offices here in Pittsburgh, is that I get some stuff like once a year from New York, and a few of those cars are non-BMWs, and then I usually try and get them to work in like 1 or 2 BMWs. But BMW typically they have a limit of 500 miles on their press loans, and just to get a car to me and back is like 500 miles for them. So that's why I don't get BMWs. I'd love to get more. I think they do make some really good stuff, but unfortunately, every time I try and ask for more, they just, they're not interested. So it is what it is, but still no more BMW cars. So I think that X7 was the last one I'll probably have this year, and probably won't get another one until next year. Let me see. Vishal says, I've seen on Reddit that Civic hybrid owners do complain of road noise often. I've also seen common complaints of seats being uncomfortable for a long period of time. Interesting. Yeah, I never had any complaints with the seats myself, but I haven't spent tons and tons of time in them. So that's an interesting thing to bring up. Definitely try that out too if you can. If you're shopping for any of that stuff. And John says, I'm looking for your Mustang advice. Would you rather go with an S550 or S650 with the almost 20 grand difference in price? S550 for sure. I've said this a lot. You can get a really nice S550. You can get a special edition one like a Mach 1 or a Bullet that holds its value better. You got to really love bigger screens in the S650 to pay the extra price. There's no world where I recommend S650 over S550. There's little improvements. Are they enough to justify even a $3,000 price premium? No. And then if you're talking $10,000, $20,000 increase, absolutely not. No way. Absolutely get an S550. Get as new of an S550 as you want. They're all great. But absolutely do not spend money on an S650, in my opinion. Some people, they love the new styling. They love the new screens and the new little features on them. And there's a few fun things. The drift brake's cool and stuff. But no, I don't think it's a good value at all anymore, especially with the pricing the way it is these days. Get yourself a nice S550. And again, I'd say if you want to protect yourself resale value-wise, try and get a special edition one, get a Mach 1. Even a California Special probably holds its value a little bit better. Something like that to help, make it be a good investment. But I mean, even regular GTs hold their value pretty well. So, but yeah, absolutely S550. He says it'd also be his second car with my Corolla being my primary work vehicle. Yeah, definitely S550. And Cam says, debating the manual versus auto game still, Mazda 3 hatch manual or Civic hybrid. What would you take if it was going to be your first car? Definitely need longevity. I mean, both are going to be fine for longevity, I think. Obviously you're going to be spending a lot more money in gas for the Mazda, versus the Civic hybrid getting 50 mpg. And yeah, I mean, you have more power in the Civic. It's hard to justify the Mazda outside of, again, having the manual option there, which you could also get in a lightly used Integra, A-Spec for the same kind of money as well, and still have the hatchback practicality of the larger hatch and the larger back seat of that Civic platform with Integra. And you can get, again, a lightly used Integra for sure for the same money as a Civic hybrid, I think. So, first car, I mean, I love manuals. Mazda's manual is nice. It's not crazy or amazing or anything in the Mazda 3 hatch. But I think it'd be a good one. I wish I spent more time in a Mazda 3 hatch manual. I've only done a 15-minute quick drive on the launch event way back when, and I've never had any luck getting my hands on a manual one since. So it's hard for me to give a good, thorough impression on that car. But Civic hybrid seems to be the stronger value, the stronger buy, for the same kind of money, I think, though. And Rafi says, I'm a manual fan. I drive 20,000 miles a year and have no regrets. Sometimes traffic sucks, but I think I'd fall asleep or get bored without it. FK8 for 94,000 and Integra Type S for 17,000 miles of driving. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're getting to drive them so much too. That really is awesome. You're able to enjoy them that much. And 17,000 on the Integra is impressive so far. You do a lot of driving. That's awesome. And let me see. I agree with what Vishal's saying there about the Civic having the better space, and the Mazda is certainly the more luxurious one. And let me see. SCB Mitchell says, once you go S550, you don't go back or forward. Probably true there. And John says, what are the long-term services and issues of the S550 that you've seen? What have they fixed with the new generation? There's not a lot that's changed as far as fixes, really. EcoBoost certainly has, some improvements out of the engine for the S650, but I still hate the transmission. It's 10-speed. I mean, you can watch my EcoBoost 2024 review. Just still so annoying as far as the way they set up that transmission. So, long-term services depends on, I mean, this could be an hour-long video just talking about the, little things about S550s, all the nuances and quirks. The one big thing is before 2018 in particular, the ACs, the air conditioner condenser can go out, and that can cause it's really hard. You got to tear out the whole dash to get to it, and it's a giant thing. So I would recommend, either finding an S550, pre-2018 that has had that service done. You'll see that on the Carfax. It's not a service, it's just it breaks at some point and then it has to be fixed. Some people get lucky and it happens under warranty. Other people, it's been just after. It happened to me on the 2016 that I had. But the bullet never had an issue with it. I mean, I don't know if I just didn't draw the bullet enough to have it, because that, didn't have more than 20,000 miles on it, before I sold it. But so I personally like S550 better with the 2018 and up, because you had the dual injection. So you got all the benefits of direct, but you still had, the reliability of the port injection. And I just think, the technology is a little bit better with the 2018 and up. You had CarPlay and stuff, which didn't come in until 2017. So there's a few little nuances there. And there's other little issues and quirks over time, that can happen to them, like any car. But overall, they're pretty solid. I mean, the motors are solid. All the mechanical stuff's pretty solid for the most part. Tons of aftermarket support, obviously, just a lot of good stuff there. And there's probably a few other little quirks that maybe others can give you info on. But I see B. Mitchell agrees about 2018 to 2023 being the sweet spot. No issues on mine at 78,000. AC is not an issue on those years. Yeah, so there you go. Thanks for the confirmation of that, B. Mitchell, as well. And yeah, I'm glad that helped you out, John. And all right, so everyone else just saying have a good week. And Rafi says love you. I love you guys too. Thanks so much again for hanging out with me here on a Sunday evening. And Rich joining in here at the last minute. Thanks for stopping by, Rich. And feel free to watch this as a video, after the fact here if you want. Had some good discussions and chats here tonight. And all right, so yeah, but thank you all so much, once again, for hanging out here. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great week. Stay tuned for some more good stuff here this week as far as reviews goes, and some more articles as well. So anyway, take care.